All right. Hello and welcome to this webinar training. We're doing a couple weeks ago, we did our first ever 4-day design sprint with Experimenter Studios. That's Sebastian and Georgian from Experimenter Studios. I'm Chris and Kathy from LifterLMS, and Julie came with us as an example going through the process. So it was super cool. I learned a ton, and I know the audience did as well. If you are here on this webinar and you were present for some of the 4-day design sprint process, let us know in the chat what was most, what your biggest takeaway was, what you learned that's going to help you in your course creation process. And also, this is going to be Q&A intensive at the end. So we're really lucky to have Sebastian and Georgian here with us and with their instructional design skills. So bring your questions. There's a Q&A box here in Zoom. There's also the chat. We're going to save questions till the end, but go ahead if you have questions as we're presenting. Don't be shy. Just drop them in there. That way, when we get to the Q&A part at the end, I can kind of manage the time and MC what we have for questions, and we can dig in. But yeah, that's really it. I'm just super stoked. That was a lot of fun. I love the idea of how we like I didn't even think it was possible to do what we did in 4 days. But I think Sebastian and your process to like condense it down to like do a sprint and get that much done and that much assumptions on the table, creative thinking, actual testing, prototyping, doing all that in 4 days is like
Yeah,
kind
and
of
we
mind blowing.
started from zero pretty much, from knowing pretty much nothing about Julie's business. So yes, it was quite a team achievement, and we also learned a lot from our audience, from their questions, and but we'll discuss about that a little bit later, because it was a learning opportunity for us as well. So
Yeah.
it's not only teaching us, sharing knowledge and experiences with the audience, but it's the other way around as well. We are learning from them. We are learning about their problems. We are learning about the way they want to be helped in this course creation endeavor. So yeah, it was quite an amazing experience. And as a matter of fact, I think I am lucky to have the opportunity to share all these things with you, with your team, and with LifterLMS community.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it. So we're going to do a recap of the 4-day course design sprint challenge. And I'm also just listening to you, the audience, of your interest in doing something like this again, doing this type of challenge. Yeah, this is like, I really think a challenge can help focus people because there's a lot stacked up against course creators. It's a lot to do. There's a lot to figure out. And to get this focused, I think is super helpful. So let's see how this goes and what questions we have, and let us know. I can't wait till we get to the end and we get into the questions and see what people are asking. So what did we learn, Sebastian? Tell us what we did and what we can take away and what you found.
Well, actually, we learned a lot in those 4 days. Please let me share my screen. Just give me a second. You should be able to see my screen now.
We've got it.
Okay, so the first part of my presentation today is just a quick recap of the workshop. I'm not gonna get into the same level of details, obviously, because it's not gonna be a repeat of everything we've done, but just a quick recap, highlighting mostly on the outcomes for each of the steps that we've been doing in the 4 days. After that, I want to take this opportunity to share my thoughts as a sprint facilitator with you, my key learnings, and open the floor for discussion as a group, of course, with all the team members as well. So that's the meeting plan for today. Without further ado, let's recap the objective, which was to validate a course idea by creating a prototype and testing it with real learners. So the purpose or the objective of this event, of this workshop, wasn't to develop a full course, but just to test a course idea through prototyping and testing with real learners. A second objective, though, was for us, for all of us, to learn how to tailor and to improve design sprint method, because we took this method off the shelf and we did a little bit of tailoring for course creation, but we are not 100% sure that we've done all the possible tailoring. So that's why a second objective for us is to learn how to tailor the method, how to make it more suitable for course creators, especially for those course creators working and selling courses as solopreneurs, because it's a little bit more difficult for people working alone or in small teams to apply a method which has been designed for working as a team. But we'll see that with a little bit of tweaking, we can adjust the method. So just to recap, a design sprint is just a step-by-step method for solving big problems and testing new ideas in just 4 or 5 days. The initial method was designed for 5 days, but later on, a lot of sprinters in this community managed to tailor it to make it doable in only 4 days, which we did actually. In only 4 days, we've been able to test a new course idea, starting from zero, from just understanding the overall challenge down to collecting feedback from real testers, real learners. So the problem is highlighted by this diagram. Usually people are taking this build, launch, and collect data cycle for building their courses, for building their businesses. But in reality, the distance between the idea and the launch, this build phase, becomes longer and longer just because we want to add more content. We are not sure about the type of learning experience that our learners want. So we have a lot of assumptions. We are building on assumptions. So that's why it takes a lot of time, effort, and sometimes a lot of money just to launch a course that nobody will be interested in. We want to shortcut this cycle and to be able to test a course idea immediately with minimum effort, with minimum cost, just to learn if the course would be suitable for our learners' needs. So that's the main purpose of a design sprint, is not meant to help you develop a full course. Please bear that in mind, because many people are saying, okay, but you've just developed a prototype. Well, validating a prototype, it's probably the most important step in your full development effort. If you are starting the development effort with an idea that was not validated, you'll probably spend a lot of effort in building something that has no future on the market. Okay, let's get into the actual recap. We will go through all the steps and we will highlight the outcomes. First of all, Julie Hall has been our decider and customer of this sprint. I've been doing the facilitation part, and Chris, Georgiana, and Kathy helped the team by developing the actual course prototype. So their contribution in the team was in all phases as course developers or team members. The first part of the workshop, day 1 and day 2, has been dedicated to what we call the ideation process. First, we wanted to understand the challenge, and then we wanted to come up with some sketch solutions. The following 2 days, day 3 and day 4, have been dedicated to the actual work, building a prototype based on the solution we sketched in day 2, and validating this prototype by involving real learners in the test process in day 4. That's the design sprint anatomy at a glance. We are following the double diamond concept. That's the core, the conceptual core of a design sprint, which starts from transforming a generic challenge into a specific challenge through the means of two major steps: discover the challenge and then define the specific one. After we have a specific challenge defined, we can start developing solutions and prototypes so we can actually deliver in the end a tested or a validated prototype, which is the specific solution. So please keep in mind this double diamond concept because it's the backbone of a design sprint. A few important roles. Decider, like I was highlighting during the sprint, is the official decision maker for the topic. So we cannot decide as a team. It's not consensus based, it's not a democracy. Decider, as a business owner, as an investor, if you will, in this effort, has the ultimate power of authority for everything related to the sprints. We also brought in experts, and we are bringing in experts in each and every sprint. In many cases, expert and decider could be the same person, especially in case of education entrepreneurs working alone or working in very small teams. Another role is facilitator, someone who is making sure the process is being followed, keeping the time for all exercises, facilitating the teamwork and stuff like that. This is the part that I've been playing for this design sprint. Excuse me. Just to remind you that design sprint is built upon four major principles. Together alone means that we are working independently, as you've probably noticed across the 4 days, but towards the same goal. We have a common goal, but we are working independently, and we are sharing individual work later on. Tangible discussion means that we are not opening endless discussions without having something to show, something tangible, like a sketch or a prototype or a concept, something that makes a discussion tangible rather than, you know, just wasting time. Getting started is more important than being right, which means that we want to move fast, because this is more important than second guessing or trying to be perfect. We are not aiming at perfection. We are talking about prototyping, which is in many cases, in most cases, is actually a fake of a final product, is not the full product. So we shouldn't invest too much effort and time in trying to make it perfect. That's the essence of this principle. The fourth one, don't rely on creativity, might be confusing for some people. It doesn't mean that we want to dismiss or disregard creativity coming from people, but instead of relying on someone being the creative hero of the team, we are relying on the process that will help all team members to bring in their creativity. So it's a team effort. It's one of the core principles of design sprint. Don't rely on someone who knows everything, someone who always has the solution, the right solution for everything. We are trying to model and implement a process rather than relying on heroes. Conceptually, a design sprint can be thought of in three major stages. The first one is to understand the challenge, to understand the questions that we need to answer in the form of can we questions. If you remember, they are also called sprint questions. Understanding these questions will lead us to the possibility to develop a storyboard. The storyboard is a description of what needs to be a prototype. It's a detailed description of the prototype to be developed. And then validation as the last part is meant to actually answer the initial questions, the sprint questions. So that's the design sprint in a single diagram. The whole point is to validate the idea with the simplest prototype possible. We don't want to invest weeks or months of work in a prototype. We want to be able to do it in a few hours, because We've actually worked about 7 hours for building the whole prototype. I guess it's better to invest 7 hours in developing a prototype along with the other 3 days rather than investing, I don't know, maybe 4 months of work into building something which is not validated by the market. We are not building an MVP. Some of you might be familiar with the concept of minimum viable product, which is a very powerful concept. It's part of the lean startup method. Yet again, a very powerful method, but this method is missing the how to build the MVP. So instead of jumping to building an MVP for the complete product, we are starting with something very small, which is the prototype. So actually, there is no contradiction between the MVP concept or the lean startup method and the design sprint. They're complementing each other very well. I'm saying that especially for people who are familiar with this very popular method of building an MVP, a minimum viable product. So let's recap. Day one was about defining the challenge and sketching some solutions that will help us to tackle the challenge through the means of a few exercises. First one, expert interview. We tried to get as much learning as we could from the expert, and we wrote down some statements in the form of questions. If you remember, those questions are starting with how might we, the so-called how might we's. That's the main gain of this or outcome of this expert interview exercise. The second one was to set a long-term goal or a 2-year goal along with sprint questions. Sprint questions are different than previous questions, than how might we questions, in the sense that sprint questions need to be kind of pessimistic. Look at this second exercise, setting a goal. Whenever we set a goal, we need to be optimistic. We look into the future, and usually people are aiming for achieving something optimistic. But in the same time, we need to look at the obstacles and barriers, everything that might prevent us to achieve that goal. These are the sprint questions, or can we questions. The last exercise in this series is called Map and Target. We try to put all our questions on a map in order to identify a focus area. So rather than fixing something, we just wanted to map the problems. That's the purpose of the third exercise. Let's take a look of the outcomes for these 3 exercises. As you can see, we collected a lot of how might we questions. I would say this exercise was really successful in terms of the number of questions we've been able to collect. I think there are around 60 or even over 60 questions, which is a very good result, especially because we've been a very small team working on this sprint. So I'm very happy with the result we got for this exercise, as well as for the next part, the 2-year goal and the sprint questions. We've been able to formulate a pretty ambitious goal along with some very realistic sprint questions. These are the goal and the questions that have been selected once again by the decider. That's why you see those green or greenish dots on them. That's the mark of the decision. They have been picked or decided by the decider. The third part of this series of exercise was to create that map and to put a target by the means of highlighting the focus area. So we wanted to have a focus area. What should we focus on in this sprint? So we simply tried to position all the how might we questions on a very simple visual way to describe a learning journey. This learning journey, or a pattern for a learning journey, is described by 3 major phases: discover, learn, and apply. Of course, there are more sophisticated learning models and instructional design theories or methods, but for the purpose of this workshop, we wanted something really simple, really actionable in just a few hours. Eventually, we managed to concentrate the questions in such a way that obviously we came up with this focus area, which you can notice is kind of centered on the learning part, which actually helped us to drive the rest of the workshop. Once we had this focus area, we knew exactly what we want to do, what we need to do and to achieve in the remaining exercises. The purpose is not to create a perfect map or a perfect representation for the problem we are addressing. It's more about finding a rough target for the prototype. Please keep that in mind, because from my experience, most of the people who are feeling kind of uncomfortable with this method is just because they expect to come up with accurate results with fully developed products or prototypes. This is not the case. We are working with the bare minimum as a concept in this design sprint. We just want to invest minimum effort for testing an idea. So that's why all the exercises are emphasizing on this minimum, if you will. The second part of the first day was about producing or sketching solutions, which is done in two parts. First, we had lightning demos. We collected some inspiration from a variety of sources, mostly from the internet, in terms of what other people do in regards to our topic, what other, let's say, articles we can find, or other possibilities to answer the questions of this sprint. This exercise is usually optional, but it proved to be very useful in our case. Although I've been a little bit reluctant in investing too much time, I'm happy that we did it, because we collected a lot of useful inspiration. The learning journey, or the map for this learning journey, has been developed, like I said before, with three major stages: discover, learn, and apply. And we have three main actors in this journey. It's first and foremost the learner, but there is also the contribution of the learning management system as a platform for delivering the learning experience, along with the instructor, because there is no 100% automation in learning. Learning is a human experience, and regardless of the amount of technology we use, we still need to keep it a human experience. So we need the human touch, we need the contribution of an instructor. So basically that's our framework to describe both the problem and also the solutions to this problem. Eventually we came up with 4 sketches, 4 models that have been proposed by all team members. And you can see that most of them are pretty well developed. So they are not just bare bones models, like 2 or 3 sticky notes or boxes. They are quite well developed, which for me means that we managed to apply the principles of the method. It's not really important to evaluate or to judge each concept or each solution individually, but the main outcome is that we've been able to follow the process, and the process led us to having 4 candidate solutions to choose from. This is a good result, I would say. That concludes the first day, and we are moving to the second one, which is dedicated to the decision process and also to storyboarding. Decision-making process is quite straightforward. It's made of 2 major steps in theory. I mean, the team members are voting on all the proposed concepts, but voting is not used to actually make a decision. It's used just to inform the decision of the customer, of the decider. So please bear in mind, whenever we say voting in design sprint, it doesn't mean the group is deciding as a group by voting, by applying majority or consensus or whatever. No, we are just voting in order to inform the decider. So we are just expressing our opinions as consultants, if you will, but the final decision rests with the decider. So in our case, Julie, our decider, has picked this model, which has been initially called by Georgian from nada to tada, I guess. But eventually we took something else from another model developed by Chris, and we changed the name from Zero to Social Media Hero. So once again, this is a very good example when the decider picks one of the models, but also some other ideas from the other models that have not been selected, let's say. A second thing, a second idea, particular idea that Julie has picked was related to the discover part in the model developed by Chris. So yet again, Julie selected the model developed by Georgian, but she wanted to have some ideas from the model developed by Chris. Yet another way to combine creative imagination or to combine collective imagination or group creativity into a more coherent solution. Well, once we decided, or decider decided on the concept to model, we started the storyboarding process, which is done in 2 steps. The first one is to identify a minimum set of touch points between our course, our learning experience, and the tester. That's why we call it user test flow. These 6 steps are actually touch points between our course and the learner. We wanted to have something simple because we wanted to be able to develop everything in only 1 day. So that's why we limited everything to only 6 steps. The steps are on the slide. I'm not going to read them, but they are describing fully the journey represented by the 3 major stages, like discovery, learn, and apply. So we follow the same concept, but we just broken down 3 major stages into 6 steps. It's a process of decomposition, if you will. Excuse me. The storyboard, which is the next exercise, is the part when we actually put some meat on the concept that has been selected. As you can see, we have used a lot of visuals, text, arrows, boxes, everything that we can to describe the learning experience in each and every of the 6 touch points. I particularly like the way Chris described his part of the storyboard. I do like hand drawing, although I'm not good at it. In the normal settings, when the design sprint is not done online or virtually, this is the way people are describing their storyboard without using any software tool. They're simply drawing on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard. So please bear in mind the purpose of the storyboard is to serve as a blueprint for developing the prototype. The more details we can put in it, the better is the chance to come up with a functional prototype, with something which is testable. Speaking about prototype, that was the purpose of the 3rd day. I guess you've been kind of connected with the team for all day long, so you've seen what we've done. Basically, we just implemented this storyboard. So it's not something to show apart from the prototype itself. You've seen the prototype. I don't believe it's worth investing more time in reviewing the same prototype. I believe it's more important to focus on the results of testing, because this is where the whole community, I guess, but Julie in particular, is collecting the most value of this design sprint. It's the conclusion and probably the real value of the design sprint. Everything we've done so far in the first 3 days is just a way to build up this result represented by all the feedback we collected from 5 interviews. We had 5 real learners, 5 people that we have interviewed. They played around with the prototype. We collected all the feedback. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to broadcast, to share all the 5 interviews, given some restrictions. Not everyone is ready to be put in front of a big audience. Unfortunately, we had to respect that and to ensure kind of privacy for our testers, for our interviewees. Excuse me, but I think we've been lucky enough to have one of the testers, Marcus, who kindly agreed to share everything in front of the audience. Once again, Marcus, if you're in the audience now, thank you a lot for making this experience way more valuable for all of us, but especially for people in the audience. This is what we collected as feedback. As you can see, there are 2 colors of sticky notes. The green ones are definitely positives for feedback, for the purpose of testing. So it's something that we can rely on as being drivers for developing the full product. Whereas those that are kind of orange, although the color is not really orange, are things that needs to be improved. On a first glance, you might say, wait a minute, there are way more oranges than greens on this diagram. Yes, but some of them are just really quick fixes. They are not really big effort-consuming topics to address. Not to mention that many of these individual feedback statements are overlapping. So if we curate this collection of statements, we might probably reduce the number of orange down to 70% of the number that you see now on the screen. So you shouldn't react like we have too many oranges, the design sprint or the prototype has failed. It's not like this. The way to interpret and use the feedback in a business decision is a little bit more, I wouldn't say complicated, but a little bit more subtle. So the next steps for the decider would be to review the aggregated test findings, the diagram that I showed you previously, and prioritize all these findings by using a so-called impact/effort scale, which is kind of very simple, probably the simplest tool that you can use for prioritization. I'm going to show it to you in a second. The third step would be to actually plan a project for designing and developing the course based on this prioritization done with impact effort scale. The impact effort scale is something very simple. On the horizontal axis, you have the effort required to implement some of the suggestions or to fix some of the errors, if you want, or flaws in the prototype. And the vertical axis is the impact on the learner. Obviously, we want to be able to do very quickly all the small fixes which are requiring just little effort, but they have a high impact on the learner. These are called quick fixes, and we should be able to do it, to fix them very quickly. Because usually with 20% of the effort, we can get like 80% of the outcome. The second category is high effort and high impact fixes. For those fixes or those problems, we need to plan a project. Why planning a project? Because it requires more effort. Whenever it comes about investing effort, we need to apply some sort of planning and perhaps a little bit of project management or work management if we want to be successful in investing that effort. For small fixes which are having impact, we can do them on the fly. But for larger efforts, we need to plan a project. Just as a side comment, my other job as a project management consultant taught me in about 20 years that if you plan a project, you have a much better chance of success, regardless of the topic addressed by the project. So please keep it as a key learning, if you wish, which is not necessarily related to design sprint. Design sprint is not about planning projects or managing projects. It's about ideation. But once you have a result out of a design sprint, the journey of a project is just about to start. And you need to apply some sort of project management or planning, at least, in order to be successful. If you have some low effort but also low impact topics in the feedback, you might want to create a backlog and revisit that backlog whenever you have the chance to invest some effort. Why they are not quick fixes? Because they don't have big impact. They are still small effort or low effort to invest in, but they won't bring you enough value. So that's why just park them for a while into a so-called product backlog. Whenever you have a little bit of extra time or extra capacity, you can pull one of them in from the backlog and make it as a quick fix. The part that you don't want to address for now is high effort and low impact. You don't want to invest a lot of effort in creating low impact outcomes to the learner. So once again, just to recap, this matrix or impact effort scale will help you prioritize the feedback collected in the 4th day of the sprint. It's just one of the possible ways or methods to be used for prioritization. I'm just suggesting Julie as a customer for this sprint to consider this method for reviewing, analyzing, and prioritizing all the feedback statements. Okay, sorry. Now, I've just finished the recap of the workshop itself, and I believe I still have a little bit of time left to dig into what I call the workshop retrospective. Like I said in the beginning of this presentation and in the beginning of the workshop itself, a second objective was for us to learn how to make it more suitable for course creators. And we learned a lot, and we are very grateful to all the team members, but also to the members of the audience who sent us a lot of questions, very relevant, who gave us their feedback. So they created for us an opportunity to learn how to make design sprint better, especially for education entrepreneurs or solopreneurs. A few findings about this workshop and the way it has been conducted. I could say that all exercises have produced the expected outcomes, which basically means we have been able as a team to follow the method, to apply the method completely. I believe this is a very positive outcome. Basically, it says the method works. The team worked very well, although we didn't have a prior working experience together. So we had to learn to work together in a matter of minutes, which we did very well, I would say. The timing was quite good, especially because you probably remember all these exercises are time boxed, and sometimes we have just a couple of minutes to finish something or to do a voting session or to come up with a statement describing, I don't know, the goal or the sprint question. So I believe we've done a fairly decent job in keeping the time and working together as a team. We also noticed there is a huge interest for this topic amongst the course creators that have been on the call, on the webinar, which is definitely something very positive. Personally, I consider that as a positive. But in the same time, we have to acknowledge that the way we designed this experience didn't provide enough engagement opportunities for the audience. I think this is something that definitely needs to be improved because, like I mentioned in the very beginning, it's first and foremost a learning opportunity for everyone. So if we keep this principle, we need to tweak a little bit the way we engage the audience in order to help them to learn and apply everything about design sprints. So that's one of the parts of the workshop that we need to work on to make it better. Another finding which I consider to be particularly valuable is that LifterLMS as a product can be very successfully used for prototyping, not only for developing full products. We know LifterLMS can support a full learning experience. We knew that even without the workshop, without the design sprint, but we didn't know that we can use LifterLMS for prototyping. And I believe most of the features that we have been using in the prototype could be found in the free version. I think this is very important because it highlights the benefit of prototyping by investing as little as possible. We don't need other tools. We only need the same tool that we'll be using in the future for delivering the full product. This is really important as course creators. I guess you don't want to spend your money in buying like 3, 4, 5, or 10 tools just to be able to do prototyping and then to do full development. You can use the same platform, the same product to do everything, prototyping and then full development. So for me, it's a very good, very valuable finding, this one. I'm just curious if you, Chris, might have some thoughts on that, because my feeling is that most of the features we have been using in the prototype are available in the free version. So people could actually prototype at no cost.
Yeah, just to put some color on that, when you said that, it made me smile. I'd never really thought about it that way, but I kind of came at it from a different angle, which is that our heart, it goes out to like the bootstrapping entrepreneur who's trying to validate with as little resources and expense
Exactly.
as possible. And to not only provide a tool where you can validate for free on the WordPress website you already have for your business, and
Exactly.
then continue on with it later. It's very low friction in that sense. So it's that just makes me smile and proud that it works in this way for the prototyping context.
You have all the reasons to be happy and proud about LifterLMS. Okay, another finding, I guess that would be on my part as a facilitator, is that we encountered some technical glitches, especially with Mural platform. We didn't have a backup plan prepared in advance, so we had to pivot to adjust on the fly. One way or another, we managed to do our last part of the job without using Mural. Basically, we took all the notes offline, and then we put everything, we uploaded everything into a coherent Mural board. But probably for the future, we should keep in mind preparing some sort of a backup plan for any tool that we are using. These are very high-level findings. Of course, we could get into details and we could refine them or break them down into smaller pieces so we can actually fix them. Now, I'm talking about not findings, but things that needs to be improved. Things that are not necessarily positives. So I try to formulate these opportunities for improvement as how might we questions, just to keep to preserve the tradition that we followed in this design sprint. So the first one would be, how might we increase audience engagement? For me personally, this is a major concern. Unless we are making it a bit more engaging for everyone, I feel like we are under-delivering, or we are delivering less value than we could possibly do. So my focus is especially on increasing the audience engagement. I'm talking about other sessions, of course. I cannot fix something that has done in the past. The second question is, how might we improve the prototype quality? I'm not saying we didn't get a good enough prototype, but we can definitely improve the way we build the prototype. It's a matter of narrowing down the overall challenge down to specific topics that can be prototyped easily. But it's also a matter of using the proper tools of tracking progress amongst the team members. So probably we could do some tweaking here just to be able to come up with a better prototype in terms of quality. Quality overall, I'm not talking about a particular quality metric, but it's something that we can definitely improve in the future. The third question is, how might we help people in the community to actually apply Design Sprint? Because that was a learning opportunity, but only 5 of us have been involved in applying actually the Design Sprint with Julie as main customer. But my question, or a question that is drawing my attention, is how might we actually help more people to apply, not just to learn, but to apply Design Sprint in their businesses, in their educational startups. And I'm going to address these 3 questions one by one. First, for increasing the audience engagement, I'm thinking about delivering some sort of training sessions before the actual sprint. This will help people to focus on the work being done rather than trying to learn and to watch the team as they are doing the job. So I believe delivering a training beforehand would actually give them a better chance to get engaged with the work being done by the team. The second would be to create an environment for simulating all the workshop exercises, like preparing workbooks or having some sort of a sandbox environment in Mural. We can come up with multiple ideas. But this is something that we want to focus on, creating a way for the audience to at least simulate the work being done in the sprint. It's one of my, let's say, personal concerns. The third one would be to introduce a little bit of gamification in this whole experience, I guess, not only for the audience, but also for us as team members, let's say. If we can make it a little bit more dynamic, more engaging through the means of gamification, I think that would be a gain for everyone. The last but not least, probably we need to allocate more time for Q&A sessions. We need to give people a better chance to ask their questions while the workshop is being conducted, rather than waiting until the end. Probably we can fix that. Most likely we can tweak the process and the timing in such a manner that everyone will have the opportunity to ask questions, and we will have time to actually answer them. So these are a few points, a few ideas that I would like to explore in the future for the first opportunity for improvement, for increasing the audience engagement. The second one relates to the prototype quality. And like I said before, the first thing that I would like to focus on is narrowing down the concept and the storyboard. Instead of trying to do something very big, something very broad, we should narrow down our focus in order to deliver a higher quality for the prototype. It's better to focus on less scope and to get a better quality than trying to include everything and not having enough time to do all the prototyping work. The second part would be to include visual design in the scope of the prototype. We didn't address that. We just did a few bits and pieces in regards to the visual design, but we definitely need to invest more, because one of the things that I noticed in the feedback statements collected from all the interviewees is that people are really affected or impacted by the visual appearance of the learning product, which is kind of normal. In all e-learning models that you'll see on the market, you'll see that the visual is playing an important role for helping the learner to absorb the learning and to actually get engaged with the learning journey. So that's an important part that I would like to spend a little bit more time on. The third way to improve the prototype quality would be to do a better job in prioritizing tasks for the prototype development. Prioritizing tasks and deliverables before actually starting to do the work. This is something that relates mostly with my project management job rather than sprint facilitator. So probably I will take a closer look on this particular part of the workshop in the future sessions. The fourth point here, or fourth idea for improving the prototype quality, would be to do a bit better progress tracking and time management for the prototyping work. It's kind of difficult because we all work remotely. We are doing various tasks and we are producing different deliverables. So it's a little bit difficult to integrate everything on such a short time frame. Like, I believe we had first a checkpoint after 2 hours, then each 1 hour or something like that. We need to do a little bit better time management for the work we are doing as a team in prototyping. The last questions, or the last opportunity for improvement, is how might we help people in the community to apply design sprint? That's actually some sort of an overarching umbrella for everything that we are trying to deliver with this design sprint initiative. I'm thinking about more educational content, because if people learn how to do it, there is a better chance they will actually do it in their business. The second topic that I would consider, actually I am considering it, for providing more help to the community is to help them create or form their own design sprint teams. This is not an easy topic, especially because most of the people in our audience are working alone or in very small teams, like 1, 2, 3 people maybe. And for them, it's quite difficult to assemble a team of at least 5 people. Actually, the preferred number of the preferred size of a design sprint team is around 6 people. So we've been understaffed a little bit in this design sprint. But helping people to form their own teams is something that I want to focus on, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to come up with some ideas. Coaching sessions is probably something that we need to consider in the future for everyone who is interested in the actual application of design sprint, not only learning. By coaching, I don't just mean talking about a topic. This is lecturing and not coaching. For me, coaching is to help people find their own resources, their own commitment to apply whatever they have learned. So coaching, it's more about enabling people to do what they have learned through any learning experience. It's more connected to the apply part of that journey in 3 stages. But I guess coaching would help. Last but not least, I'm thinking about using or introducing to the community other similar workshopping techniques like LDJ or Lightning Decision Jam, strategy or marketing sprints, 10 for 10, action boards, challenge hunters. All these are just another set of workshopping techniques used for ideation. So if people will be interested in learning other tools or similar tools with Design Sprint, I'm happy to consider sharing my experience with this with these workshop formats as well. Most of these other workshopping techniques that I'm talking about are smaller in effort and time than the full design sprints. You can think of them as just Lego pieces that you can use to develop whatever testing or prototyping device you want to develop. So whenever you have some challenges in your business, you can pick and choose the workshop type that is most suitable for your particular challenge. Design sprint is not a silver bullet for everything. It's a very useful tool, but there are some other useful tools as well. And some of them are a bit smaller in terms of time and effort to invest. Other improvements, I would say generic improvements, is to use better tools for storyboarding, like Sketch, for instance, or many other available tools, just to improve the quality of the storyboard, because the storyboard, once again, is the blueprint for the prototype. The second idea would be to have some backup options for both Zoom and Mural, because both of them are cloud solutions, and every once in a while, like with any other cloud solutions, they run into trouble. So we need to be prepared to have some alternate solutions. There are a lot of let's say, alternate solutions for Zoom and for Mural as well. The third idea would be to extend the method with a follow-up plan. The method doesn't prescribe what to do when the design sprint is over. We are just providing some sort of recommendation to Julie as a customer, but there is no prescribed way for her to follow in using the outcome of the design sprint. Why? Because that would be part of the project management, like I said before, or the product development. But I'm very curious in exploring ways to extend the actual design sprint with some follow-up work, with some follow-up plan for actually using the result of the design sprint in the business. Another idea would be to identify some sort of patterns of challenges faced by the course creators. If we are able to identify these patterns, we will definitely be able to come up with customized solutions. I think that was one of the themes that we addressed in our prototype as well. So the idea, the concept of tailoring or customizing let's say standard approaches, I think it's quite useful for the design sprint as well. We can definitely improve the templates that we have used in the workshop. I'm talking about the Mural templates. They can be made more appealing and also more functional. Mural is quite generous in terms of features, so we can improve the templates as well. And another point, which is for me personally is quite important, is to make a better use of instructional design and learning models when we are sketching the solutions. We shouldn't forget that we are all course creators. So regardless of the workshopping method that we use for validating our ideas, we should keep in mind always various instructional design and learning models, because that's the core of our job, of our profession. That's something that I can relate with. Probably I could have thought of using more or a more sophisticated instructional design and learning model. I think it's good that we started with the simplest possible, but over time we need to improve. We need to put a little bit more weight on the instructional design or the learning experience design. Next steps, because I'm trying to think of the next steps. We definitely want to continue. For me, it was an amazing experience. I gained a lot of learning. It was quite fun as well. So it's something that I personally would like to continue to do. I'm thinking that next sessions should consider all identified opportunities for improvement. We should consider all of them, prioritize them, perhaps using the same impact effort scale. and try to come up in the next edition of the course design sprint with an improved experience. The third one would be to establish and nurture, if you will, a course design sprint community of practice, or a COP in short. I do have some experience in building communities of practice in other areas, in project management and process improvement. And I'm happy to share my experience in doing this kind of things with our course creators community. As a matter of fact, I'm taking it very seriously, and I'm ready to invest effort and time in building this community for people who want to get more involved in that, and people who want to learn more and to apply more of design sprint in their businesses. As a matter of fact, if you don't mind, Chris, I could also share a link where people can sign up if they are interested in this community of practice, and whenever this community will be ready, we can simply notify them to get in touch with us if they want to participate.
Sure, sounds great.
Thank you. So this is the link. I'm going to share it in the chat as well. It's just a simple sign up on a waiting list. So don't expect anything fancy. It's just to show your interest if you would like to be part of such a community of practice. We are not offering anything now. We are not selling anything. It's just to register your interest for developing this practice of design sprint for course creators. Well, I guess that concludes pretty much my presentation for today. I'm a little bit over time with 4 minutes.
That's the project manager in you. You're good.
Yeah.
Are we good to go into questions, or did you have any final wrap-up thoughts there?
No, but I would be very happy to learn about your thoughts about the whole experience.
Yeah. So do a round around the panel of thoughts and experience. For me, I was really blown away by the process, and I've seen a lot of people say that in the chat, that the process does the heavy lifting. I mean, I'm a creative person and I like making stuff up, but to have that combined with a process and not doing it alone, like that whole together alone thing, is pretty cool. So I was blown away by that. I really liked how quickly it went through. And also, I just see myself included, guilty as charged. We have a lot of assumptions as course creators, and to like go to market and get in front of people and be open to like feedback. I think it's so powerful, and it's, you know, sometimes it's uncomfortable or whatever, but it's, there's so much learning in it that, like, man, the product's going to be so much better, and it's going to be so much easier to sell and communicate about when you develop it with actual feedback. So I thought that was super cool, because I had never really done, I mean, I've seen a lot of people using tools I've made, like software, like LifterLMS and whatnot, but to actually to conduct user tests was really awesome. And one of the interesting things from the user tests that I found really interesting across the board was this whole Facebook ad banner blindness thing. Like, everybody was like, they didn't even see it. I had to like tell them to like, all right, now go look at this thing over here. I thought that was super interesting. So that's just a couple of feedback and points. I learned a ton though. That's just a few things, but I'll hand it over. Anybody else on the panel like to go next? Go ahead, Julie.
I'll go. I have some observations. One, Sebastian, I'm curious about the process, the design sprint. Is that a process you developed? Is that, I mean, it's like the agile process a bit, but so I'm not familiar with the process. And
I cannot take credit for developing this process, this method. It has been designed by, excuse me, by a gentleman called Jake Knapp, who is working as a product manager with Google. It has been further refined by other practitioners of design sprint process. I only tailor the method a little bit for applying it to course creation, because that's a particular area. The method itself, it's meant for pretty much any kind of product. So that's the only thing that I've done, a little bit of tailoring. Obviously, I need to do a little bit more tailoring to fit the purpose of course creators. So that's my contribution. I cannot
And also for
claim
services.
any credit.
I
Say
had
again?
For services, Sebastian, this is also important to mention that the method can be used for designing services.
Yes.
okay.
As a matter of fact, the products, when we say products, we should include both goods and services. In my opinion, learning is a service. It's the delivery or facilitation of a journey, of an experience. So it's more of a service rather than a product. We definitely use products to deliver this experience, to deliver this journey, like courses, like content, like, I don't know, perhaps tools. But the main thing that we are creating and delivering to our learners is an experience, which is a service. And there is indeed a particular flavor of this design sprint for services, which worth consideration for future improvements.
Okay. That was interesting. It was new to me. I've seen the user journey and the journey map, where you have a persona and you map their journey, and in some of the agile process. But I had never seen this design sprint, so that was a new process for me.
And indeed, it's a kind of an agile process. That's why the name sprint, because they borrowed a lot of concepts from the agile development world. The most important one is time boxing. That's why they call it a sprint, because everything is time boxed. And I think it's a good idea, because otherwise design thinking, which is the foundation for design sprint, design thinking is a huge area, very generous, with a lot of knowledge that can be applied, but it takes huge time to make it work. So it's like, design thinking is like math. Math is huge, it's infinite. If you want to apply math, you need a particular method or an algorithm or something that works particularly for your problem. That's the main contribution of design sprint, which is originated in design thinking.
Okay.
Hope that answers your question. If not, just let me know.
The other question I had was, you mentioned that one of the improvements you might think about was narrowing down the concept. Can you expand on that just a little bit? Narrowing down the concept and I don't know.
That's definitely one of the barriers in not in learning, but in applying design sprints. We are quite ambitious usually as course creators. We want to create big courses. We want to offer everything we know about the topic. And sometimes we are a little bit over ambitious in doing that. And if we are aiming to delivering too much, we might end up delivering too less.
Yeah.
But let's not forget what is the purpose of the design sprint, just to test the idea. So we should think of the minimum set of features that help us to test the idea, not the full set. We have plenty of time afterwards to develop a full course development plan. But for the purpose of testing, we need to focus on those parts that are most relevant instead of trying to create a fully fledged learning experience. I'm not saying we've done something wrong in our sprint, but we could probably invest a bit more effort in making it better as a prototype if the scope would have been a little bit less.
Okay. So what did you think was the key idea? Because there were some of those things that we had identified that I thought really were not addressed in the final product. And I don't know, but I thought we kind of really didn't test some of
Yeah,
it.
we haven't been able to test everything that came to our mind as ideas. One particular idea that uh, I liked a lot is the idea of customizing the learning experience for the learning.
Right.
I'm really passionate about that. This is
Mhm.
what I'm trying to do in all my teaching experiences, to customize the learning. Learning is not an off-the-shelf product that you buy and use like a bar of soap. Learning is a human experience. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to test something as big as customizing the learning experience when you only have a few hours. So
Mhm.
perhaps with a bit of narrowing down the concept, we could have been tested a little bit of customization. I'm not saying to test everything in terms of customizing the learning experience, but that's an interesting thought to be considered for the next session.
Right. That was one that particularly came to my mind. We really didn't test that, even though we talked about it.
Yeah, because we've been kind of over ambitious. Honestly, we wanted to do a lot, which is a good thing. And the key learning here is aim high. That's why we have a 2-year goal. Be very optimistic when you set your long-term goals, but focus more on the next step.
Right. Okay. That was good. I learned a lot doing it. The process really taught me a lot, and I love having, and like you say, it would have been even a little bit better with a few more people, because you feed off the other ideas of the other people. Um, I really like a team for that reason, because each person brings in different ideas. So
Yeah.
I want to thank all of you. So it's very, very good experience.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Kathy or Georgian, you want to weigh in on some comments before we turn it over to the audience?
Well, one thing that I thought was really interesting from the test user interviews was their focus on the videos as far as building trust, production, quality, even how they were getting distracted by the different backgrounds of the people who shot the videos, which was really interesting because, Chris, you have computers in the background, looks like a professional studio, and one of the people had said that she was distracted by that and she'd rather see a blank wall. Or so it was really interesting, their feedback, and it kind of belied that maybe it should be like a green screen or a plain wall behind them to build trust. I felt like their comments about the videos were really interesting.
Georgian?
Other thoughts, Georgian?
Yes, from my side, I will reiterate, I will stress the idea that we should have been concentrated on less to do it better. It's also something that I'm doing most of the time. I overcommit myself to do and to deliver things, and sometimes I don't have the necessary time to do it. And yes, it could have been better to have less to do in the prototype than we actually did.
Cool. Well, we've got about 44 more minutes, and I know the audience has some questions. Are we good to transition to that, Sebastian?
I'm perfectly okay, and I'm here for as long as you need me to answer all the questions. So from my personal perspective, we can spend even more than 45 minutes.
All right, we'll see what
I'm
comes.
here to answer all the questions I can answer.
We have some from earlier in the chat, so I actually want to start with one of Elena's questions from earlier, and she was looking at the design sprint process and the selecting the user tests. And what she identified, because her program is focused on single moms starting online businesses from home, when she looks at the actual people that follow her and engage in stuff, there's actually quite a bit of like married moms. So they're not like perfect fit customers for what she's doing, but they're still there. In marketing, we call that like a different segment or whatever.
Yes,
So
but close, different but close.
Her question was, should she, given that there's like who she's building for and who's actually showing up as like not it's not that the other people aren't showing up, it's that more people are also showing up in a different profile. Should she run a separate sprint for the married mom versus the single mom, or do just focus on the single mom, or like what, how should she think about this idea that she has these two different types, one not as intentional but is still there? What should she do?
I don't claim I have a magical recipe for that, but what comes to my mind is that for the second segment, perhaps she could consider running a so-called iteration sprint, which is sort of a zoom in into a particular area of the initial prototype, which gives the possibility to explore more an additional set of features. So perhaps that might be the answer, to serve with the same product an extended segment or another segment along with the initial segment. An iteration sprint is, like I said, a zoom in into the initial sprint. It's less effort required. It's about 3 days because most of the work has been prepared in advance by the first sprint. So perhaps running a second sprint as an iteration sprint might help her to either create a derivative product or to combine multiple features into a single product addressing two segments. That's just something that comes to my mind right now, but I don't believe there is a single solution to that. Probably we would need to get into more details to come up with something very practical as a solution to apply, or a process to follow.
One follow-up comment on that, just to give you an example, like for LifterLMS, we focus a lot on the expert industry and people who have specialties and they want to teach and coach online, but also a lot of like WordPress professionals, site builders follow us. So there's like we have all these different segments. And
Yes.
I just think, I just like that I understand, I resonate with Elena's question of like, how do we focus, or should we just do separate sprints? And I think you answered it. I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
So Deborah had a comment. It was more of a comment, but I just wondered if you had any comments on top of that, which was, you mentioned the human hours. It was 7 hours actually of prototyping, but per person, there were 4 of us actively prototyping. That's 28 hours. So like in theory, if you were going to develop a prototype to the level that we did, it, like by yourself, it would actually be like 28 hours of prototyping, right?
Yeah.
So just
in terms of the amount
comment.
of effort, yes, that's the amount of effort.
Yeah.
It's 8 hours multiplied by the number of people in the team.
I think that's one of the cool things about the team aspect of it, is because 4 days sounds impossible, but part of that is because there's all that simultaneous work going on, which is cool. There was also a question Deborah had about the how might we streamlining it down to from 60 to 13 and then voting and stuff like that. Can you just describe that part of how that happened?
You mean for starting from the huge number of how might we questions? Actually, many of them are just overlapping, are just the same questions phrased differently. And the process of filtering out a reasonable amount of questions is just, once again, to be able to identify a focus area. It's not a precise thing. You shouldn't be very concerned about the number of questions initially collected and the number of questions which eventually make it on the map, because the purpose of the map is just to have a rough idea where the problem is on that 3 stages journey. So it's not meant to provide a precise solution, just to give you an idea. Okay, so the problem is pretty much centered on the learning. Then I will focus all our team efforts on the learning part. So it's a very rough estimate, if you want, of the focus area.
That's cool. Deborah also had another kind of comment / question just about developing strategic thinking, like with tools. Can you just speak to that more? Like you mentioned some frameworks and stuff, but like as a course creator, let's say we're not trained in instructional design or learning theory or whatever, how can we be more strategic in our thinking of how we approach building curriculum and just strategic thinking in general?
Well, instructional design and learning models are both huge areas. I would probably need days, not hours, to get properly into the details of these two topics. But strategically speaking, I see the success in any form of education business or education-based business split into two main parts. First is the ideation, the quality of ideas, and then is the implementation. If you manage to handle these two things in the proper sequence, you have a much better chance to be successful at the strategic level. If you don't invest enough in the ideation process, which is design sprint or any other methods, you'll end up investing or spending or wasting a lot of time in the implementation phase. So on a very high level, I would say one of the strategic success factors is to be able to focus on both levels, ideation and implementation. My background as a professional is mostly on implementation. I've been doing project management and consulting and training for project managers for about 20 years. It's been more recent when I actually got into this ideation part. And you know why? Because I've been in so many failed projects in 20 years. Yeah. And I've seen so many huge failures. And I'm talking about billions.
Yeah.
In terms of money spent or wasted.
So what was missing?
I tried for 20 years to develop and improve the implementation methods because that's my core job as a project manager consultant. But then I realized it's like, maybe I'm investing my efforts into the wrong part, because most of the projects of any kind in this world are failing just because they don't have the proper start. And the proper start means a proper idea, a validated idea. So that's why I became interested in the first part in the cycle, the ideation process. So yeah, I would consider that as a strategic point if we all manage to focus on both sides of the business, ideation and implementation.
Peter asks, how could you apply a design sprint to a single designer everyday design process? So
I think there are two questions, but please correct me if I'm wrong, Peter. First, you're talking about working alone as a single designer. And second, you are talking about everyday design process, like something that you do on a daily basis. Is that right? Is that your question with the two parts? Okay. The first thing, as a single designer, as a single person, you cannot fully apply design sprint as a method. It's designed, it's meant to be a team method. So there is no alone, all by yourself, a full design sprint. You would get from some of the exercises, like, for instance, interviewing your customers and collect all the problem statements as how might we questions, and then placing all these how might we questions on a map or on a framework, the one that fits into your business. But this is all you can do alone. You need a team to run a design sprint, and that's why I said probably 10 minutes ago that I'm very focused on finding the ways to help individual entrepreneurs like you to find partners so you can run a fully designed sprint. But honestly, all by yourself, you cannot do a sprint. It's the same as with the Scrum method, for instance, in development. You cannot do it all by yourself. Or it's the same as with any other project management method. You need a team. especially for everything which needs to be time boxed, because you need to concentrate significant effort on very short time frames. As for the second part of your question, applying design sprint for the day-to-day things that you are doing as a designer, it's not really possible, but you can use other design sprint-like methods. For instance, lightning decision gems. You could use lightning decision gems just to pick and choose the problems that you want to address as a designer, or to brainstorm about ideas, the so-called 10 for 10, or challenge hunter, which is also a workshopping method. These are the things that you can do, let's say, on a daily basis, because you cannot run design sprint on a daily basis. But you can use various components of this overarching framework, and to embed these components into your day-to-day work. That's why I mentioned a couple of other workshopping techniques that can be used for the overall design process. Most of them are shorter and requiring less effort than a full design sprint. So to conclude, you need a team to work with if you want to run a full design sprint. You cannot do a design sprint on a daily basis, but bits and pieces might prove useful in your day-to-day work. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, he says thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Cosma had some comments here mostly, but just to share, she had several takeaways. One was that she really got a lot about learning about workshop facilitation by watching you, Sebastian, as a facilitator, like lead the process. And she said the fact that the process is possible, even just seeing it happen, is very inspiring and motivating to people, and gave her the confidence. And then she immediately implemented WordPress and LifterLMS tricks as she watched me and other panelists prototyping in the process. So I think there's an element when you do this in public where it really inspires people. I think part of the thing is that, like, just watching somebody go through a sprint might just be part of the learning process.
Yes, and thank you for this comment, Cosma. As a matter of fact, that was our intent with this event. We could have done just the sprint for someone in the community without providing the opportunity of learning for the rest of the community. And we felt that this is not really enough. I do believe in that saying, help one people each day, but it doesn't really work. So we wanted to open this experience to as many people as we could, just to give them sort of an incentive to invest a little bit more effort in learning the method. Because if you see other people doing it, you become a little bit more confident in doing it on your own, with other partners, perhaps, with other colleagues, with other business associates. I don't know. We can find ways to help people form the team for running the sprint. But yes, that was the intention, to motivate people to invest a bit more effort on this area, because otherwise most of the people will focus on developing content, developing features, including as many features as they can in their full products, without even knowing what the customer wants. So basically, design sprint will help you all to learn what your public wants rather than what you think they want.
That's awesome. We got another question from Elena, which she's basically asking her her teenage daughters work with her in her business. And the question is essentially, is there a pro con, or you could talk about the difference between doing a design sprint with strangers? Like, for example, here, not everybody knows everybody or has worked together before. Or is it like, what if you do it with just like your team, that everybody knows everybody and everybody's kind of worked together for a while, whether they're family members or not? Like, is there an advantage or disadvantage to going through this process with strangers?
No, I don't I don't think there are advantages or disadvantages. It just we just need to consider that, to keep that in mind when we form the team. I believe it's quite possible to run design sprints with the people you know very well, maybe your coworkers, maybe your business associates, or even your family, as long as you are used to work with them. As a matter of fact, design sprint as a service is mostly offered in corporations or big companies, and 90% of a design sprint team is usually made of people working in the same place for the same business. So I wouldn't see a particular disadvantage in working with people you already know very well. On the other hand, I do feel is a good opportunity to work with strangers, with people you haven't met before, or people who haven't been involved in your business before, because it gives you the possibility to bring some fresh minds into the challenge that you are trying to tackle. So either way, it works as long as you follow the process.
That's great. Deborah's asking for any other like kind of feedback patterns we saw in the user tests that could be of general use to people. And I'll just, while you're thinking, I'll lay some I saw out there. The Facebook banner blindness was interesting. The video quality was something that people focused on a lot. People, what else?
I think
really
the quality of the video was a major area of focus for most of the testers. So people are kind of sensitive to the quality of what they see, the visual appearance. I believe it's a pattern, it's a theme that we can definitely notice. Other than that, from the top of my mind right now, I couldn't give you a particular theme that I noticed.
I saw one that I would just put out there, which is like when people click through from the Facebook ad and they were on the landing page, and then there's call to action button on the landing page, only one person like went up to the menu and looked around at the course library and catalog that we spent so much time designing and building. So I guess what I learned, I already kind of knew this, but it just confirmed it, is that landing pages are very important in that user flow, like through time. Like, don't expect them to like hunt around and like find stuff. Like, you have to design the flow. That was just something I really kind of got.
That's actually the entry point in the user flow. So you want to focus them on the learning journey rather than giving them too many opportunities for losing their focus. So try to focus them. Your role as an instructor or course creator is to help people throughout the journey. So help them start properly without too much distraction. And that relates with the quality of the visual design as well. In my opinion, a good visual design should help learner focus on the learning rather than, exploring aesthetics.
Yeah.
So there are probably a lot of interesting themes or patterns that we might uncover. That's part of the analysis. In all honesty, I strongly encourage Julie to spend some time on reading carefully all these statements, because actually that's the part of feedback analysis and prioritization. You might discover, Julie, that perhaps you have only 3 or 4 or a handful of major themes that you need to focus on. And for solving or addressing those themes, you only need a little bit of more effort. I'm talking about those quick fixes in the impact effort scale. For other themes that require more effort but have a big impact as well, you need to think a bit more project management like, and plan a project for developing the product to address those themes. But for everything you notice that can be fixed in a few days of work, just analyze them, group them into common themes like the ones that we just discussed about, and do some quick fixes.
I had another question for you, Sebastian, related to what you said earlier about a prototype is not an MVP. So MVP stands for minimum viable product. And in the course creation and the membership site world, a lot of leaders in the space, myself included, borrow that from the software world of MVP, minimum viable course, minimum viable membership. Let's say we're kind of, how would you connect the dots from like prototype thinking to deploying an MVP and then ultimately fleshing out a great product? Or can you work with both those concepts over time?
Totally. As a matter of fact, this is how I came across design sprints, because I'm also kind of a supporter of the lean startup method, of the MVP concept. I came across this concept a few years ago when Eric Ries published his lean startup method, his book. Very useful, very full of practical insights, but it's a very scientific method. It's based on collecting data, hard numbers, and feeding these numbers into the cycle of generating new ideas. So it's all scientific. Design sprints, on the other hand, is a bit more subjective way to investigate people needs and wants. It's not really scientific. If you notice, everything we do in a design sprint, it's a little bit subjective. It's just human touch, human interaction. It's about perceptions. It's about impressions. But this is learning. Learning is not 100% scientific. So we need to find a balance between using scientific methods like lean startup based on hard data and more subjective methods which are based more on the human touch, if you will, which is design sprint. The best way to integrate the two methods is to use design sprint as a way to go from your idea to the MVP. Before starting to develop an MVP, you need to validate a prototype first. Once you have the prototype developed, you are good to go to the MVP phase. But starting to invest effort in an MVP, I told you in the beginning that build part, build MVP, gets larger and larger and larger because you are working with unvalidated assumptions. All you have is assumptions in the beginning of lean startup method. You need to test those assumptions without investing effort in development. So that's why design sprint can help you validate the idea very quickly in only 4 days, and then you can move to the full development of of an MVP.
If you could you bring up your slide deck to the screen of that quadrant of impact and that one, and there's just some questions. There's a question about whether it was what we learned on Julie's or maybe a hypothetical or whatever. What would be an example of something that's definitely backlog versus easy win versus project management time versus can you just give examples of the boxes to help lock in the learning?
I will try, but I'm not sure I'll be able to find something quite relevant. As a matter of fact, I could give you, can you see my screen?
Yeah, and feel free to go hypothetical too if that's easier or whatever. So
okay, as an example of a quick fix first that I would personally do if I was the customer of this prototype, I would definitely improve the quality of everything visual. I mean, videos, the so-called web design. This is something very easy to fix, even if you use templates. You don't need to be a great web designer or a superstar videographer. You just need to do very simple things. This theme of visual appearance, I would consider it as a quick fix. Create a backlog. I cannot remember something which got my attention as a potential backlog. Um,
And for
but
those that don't know the term, could you just describe what the backlog is? It's like
a backlog is just a pile of things that you might want to consider doing in the future, but for the time being, you're not investing too much effort. Whenever you have a little bit of extra time, you pick something from that backlog, from that pile of things to do, and you do it. But it's not your first priority. Your first priority is to do quick fixes, something that you know how to do and you can do it quite quickly. The second that you should focus on is themes or topics that require more effort but also have big impact. And you need to plan a project for addressing them all. It's the top part of the diagram, the green boxes, quick fixes and plan a project. This will bring you success in the future. The ones that are not requiring too much effort but are not creating much impact either, probably want to keep a list of them. It's called backlog, but not necessarily something that you will start implementing tomorrow because they don't create too much of an impact. For instance, the part with the Facebook ad, I would simply consider it as a backlog item for the time being. You know why? Because it's not actually part of the core learning process. It's just the way people discover your learning offering. It's just marketing. When I say just marketing, I'm not trying to say it's not important, but marketing is a different area of your business. Perhaps you would like to run a design sprint for marketing only. And in that particular context, the way you design and publish your ads might become really important. But for the purpose of this prototype, the ad wasn't really the heaviest piece in the game. So I would consider it, okay, I need to do a better job with the way people are discovering my learning opportunity, but it's not going to be the first thing I will work on. It would be an example of a backlog. For those of you who are familiar with Scrum development or any other agile method like DSDM or a third, whatever, please don't confuse the term product backlog used in agile development with the term backlog that I've used here, because two different worlds, two separate set of terms. By backlog in this particular context, I mean a list of things that I might possibly do in the future, but they are not my first priority.
that's super cool. Were you good or move on or no?
Yeah, I mean, probably I couldn't give you too many examples right now. Let's think of something that forget for now. Forget for now. I didn't feel that many people have been really focused on the pricing part. Perhaps or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but based on my recollection, it wasn't a huge theme for them, which is a good idea, or I would consider it as an idea for packaging everything related to pricing and marketing in a separate sprint.
Yeah.
Because it's the way you sell your product, but first you need to learn if you have a product. Then you can think of pricing. You can keep this learning. I mean, people haven't been that interested in pricing, or perhaps the pricing that I offered in the prototype is not really well designed. I will keep it, but only for the future. Perhaps package all things related to sales and marketing in a separate sprint, which, by the way, it's a common practice in many companies. They are doing the so-called marketing or strategy sprints just for addressing any challenge related to the way they market their products. The purpose of this. Go ahead. Sorry.
A very small comment, Sebastian. Yes, maybe the price is not important in that sprint, but I would say that the pricing model is. Because if you decide on a pricing model, you could, on a different pricing model, you could build the product itself, the course itself differently.
Yes, you could consider that. But once again, it comes down to what I said before about narrowing down the scope of the prototype. If you want to test too many things in a single prototype, the quality or the fidelity of the prototype is not going to be very high because you're spreading your effort across multiple topics. If you pick fewer topics to be addressed in the prototype, you have a better chance to invest more effort on those ones that you selected, and you'll get a higher fidelity prototype. There are multiple ways of building prototypes of multiple types. High fidelity prototype means something which resembles very much with the end product, whereas low fidelity means something that is just a simulation of the final product. If you want to get into a high fidelity prototype, you need to narrow down the scope. That would be my take. But indeed, pricing model is important. Pricing model is something that can drive your future efforts, especially in planning a project, because the way you develop your course or your learning experience is very much related to the way you plan to sell it. So there are connections between the two. That's why my suggestion would be to include it in a marketing or sales focused sprint.
That's awesome. And I really love Deborah's question here, Sebastian, which is, if we're connecting the dots between prototyping first to validate and then MVP, her question is around going the other way from the prototype. If we go back in time to where we just kind of decided we wanted to, let's say, build an internet business around education, but we're not sure like what to focus on or come up with that first offer, can we use design sprint thinking pre-prototype phase to kind of just go from the very, very beginning of, I want to build an education company, but I don't know what my offer is or necessarily what to focus on.
Okay, so basically, if I'm interpreting correctly, or the question is, I don't know yet what is my challenge. Can I use design sprint for just selecting the challenge that I want to address?
Yeah.
Is that the
That's
core
basically
of the question?
it, yeah.
Yeah, the answer is quite simple, as a matter of fact. You could use design sprint as a full experience, as a full 4 days workshop, but you could start smaller with other types of workshops, like the one called LDJ, Lightning Decision Jam. And you could actually use Lightning Decision Jam just to select your challenges. And then once you have selected a number of challenges or a single challenge that you want to focus on, be it your problem related to one of your products, then you can run a full sprint to actually address the challenge. But you can use LDJs just to select the challenge, things that you want to address, to solve.
That's great. Could you tell us, talk to, Elena has a question basically around tester selection. How should we go about or think about tester selection? Like and what are they? Because they're like, should they be like as close as we can to our ideal customer, or what? I mean, how do we think about selecting testers?
Well, actually, we didn't address that very much in the teaching part of this event, how to select test users. But that's a great question, because you should actually try to recruit people who are part of your segment, of your niche. That's why you need to create, to have before the sprint, the personas for your customers. Once you have that, you can start recruiting users, which are falling in the category that you are targeting. What I would suggest is for a real sprint, especially if you want it to be very effective, try to recruit unbiased testers, people that you don't know, people who don't want to help you, because sometimes when people want to help you, they might end up not helping you that much, actually. So try to look for very independent, objective, and unbiased testers. This can be done through a variety of means. You can publish announcements on your social media channels. Look, guys, I'm looking for testers. Is anyone interested in taking part of this experience? You can sometimes even pay people for being your testers. It's not an uncommon practice to pay them because it's a job to be done. It's work to be done, and it's the kind of work that brings value to your business. So to a certain extent, I believe it's kind of fair to consider paying for your test users. I know companies doing that through Amazon gift cards, or simply giving them free access to their product. In our case, would be giving them free access to our courses or something like this. But the process to select users should be very well connected to the process of identifying your potential customers, because this is what you want to test: your product in the hands of your potential customers. So there is no generic one-size-fits-all recipe for selecting user, but look into the way you identify your market, your target market, and your potential customers. Try to use the same principles in recruiting your test users.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, maybe we can do one more question and then kind of wrap up this. Just a question for Julie. Just what are you thinking going forward, and just like your biggest takeaway and what you think you might do next?
I'm not sure I'm following this.
Oh,
It's-
did you
I-
go
I
ahead?
got a lot of value from it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that I'm going to I really would like Sebastian's full sheet of our worksheet so I can look through all the stuff and kind of remember the process and sort of solidify the results and analyze the data and come up with a next plan from there. So I intend to to do some courses. So yeah, but I thought it was helpful in my journey toward that, and yeah, so it was a good first step, and I learned a lot of things. By the testing the people was pretty insightful. Like you said, people didn't observe things that you thought, oh my gosh, how are they missing that? You know,
Right.
so when you get real people in there, it's interesting. The things that they are attracted to, and the things that they totally, like I wasn't expecting them to be so critical on the videos, know. So so anyway, it was very good learning experience. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And we are coming up just about on time. Sebastian, well, first, go ahead and drop a comment in the chat. Just biggest takeaway. You want to see us do another design sprint at LifterLMS? Just let us know what you thought of the experience. And Sebastian, where can people, before we kind of sign out here, like where can people go to find out more about what you're up to at Experimenter Studios? You have that link. Maybe post it again about the community.
Yeah, I will.
And
thank you.
And then where are you driving towards as with this mission? Because I really appreciate you came to me at LifterLMS, and we've been kind of hanging out, networking online, meeting up over the years for almost 5 years now and how can the people connect with you, and what's your goal, or what are you feeling called to do yourself with this area of expertise?
I'm going to tell you about my goal, but first I would like to tell you about my key takeaway from this whole experience.
Yeah.
It's just a reinforcement of a concept, of a principle that I knew before, which means that teaching starts with learning about your learners. If you want to be a good teacher, if you want to be a good facilitator for a learning journey, you need to invest in learning about your learners, about what they need, about what they want, because these might be two different things. So this is my key takeaway. I'm happy that I had the opportunity to learn about this particular community of education entrepreneurs. My goal on long term is to try to bring as much value as I can from the corporate world into this community, because this is where I have been working for the last 20 years or so, experimenting with a lot of methods, processes, frameworks, models, and so on. And I'm eager to help small companies or even individual entrepreneurs to use at least some of these methods to deliver better experience for their customers, therefore to build their businesses. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I've been working for big companies and for public sector, but I'm running my own company for almost 20 years. So I can relate with the struggle. I can relate with all the problems that you are facing as solopreneurs. And that's why I want to bring my, let's say, contribution, perhaps not very much, to this community in terms of bringing the expertise that is being used by the big guys, by corporations. So this is what I'm planning to do in regards to all my efforts about e-learning, particularly related to the design sprint for course creators. I want to build this community. I'm sure we can build it together, as a matter of fact, and I'm pretty sure that Chris, you will also have, you could have a great contribution to this thing. I don't want to do it all by myself, and I don't want to do it for you, if you know what I mean. I want to do it with you, for you. So I couldn't design a community and the content and the events, the journey in this community, if I don't get some feedback from you guys. So please feel free to connect with me and to let me know any ways that I can help you in delivering better learning experiences. And feel free to ask questions about anything related to instructional design, to e-learning technology, to design sprints, to project management applied to e-learning development. So yeah, let's build some expertise, real professional expertise in this community.
That's awesome.
That would be my goal.
We're totally in alignment. Nothing against big corporations or anything, but my mission is to kind of make to democratize learning in the digital classroom, which means
I love that concept.
to take it. I mean, there's people that pay like $30,000 for an LMS system that's not as powerful as Lifter. And the fact that that's why what you said earlier about, being able to prototype essentially for free from the WordPress site you already have. That to me is like a big win that just really aligns with our mission. So we're right there with you, Sebastian. I want to thank Julie for your courage to go with us on this wild ride and doing it together. It's been a lot of fun. It takes courage to do that, especially on stage in front of other people. So thank you for being brave there. And Sebastian, Georgian, it's great to do it with you. Kathy, like always, over the past 6 years, I couldn't have done it without you. And I'm gonna wrap up this webinar unless you have any final words, Sebastian, for the people.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for being part of this event, of this experience. I mean, all the team members and also the audience who have been with us for such a long time. This wasn't a usual webinar experience, and I do appreciate a lot their time investment in this thing, and I look forward to continue working one way or another with you guys. So it was a great opportunity for me to learn about what you need, and I'm looking forward. Like I said before, we definitely want to continue that, and we should prepare better the next edition of course design sprint.
That sounds awesome. Well, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to the amazing panel. It's been a great ride, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.